Hello and welcome to the Art Department podcast. We're at episode 21. It's again Emmanuel Shiu in San Francisco and myself, Jan Urschel. And this week we're going to talk about AI, evil AI, Terminators, whatever. But what does it really all mean? Automation, are our jobs at risk? And how is the job of a concept artist, a concept designer in the entertainment industry affected by that? Or even maybe artists at large? It's kind of a buzzword, and let's have Emmanuel buzz to start things off. Are you afraid of machines taking over your job?
Well, you know, I mean, the simple answer is probably no. I mean, I'm not really afraid, but you know, I have had times when I've heard of, you know, like I've had times when I actually got a little bit like, I don't know. But I really realized that, you know, it depends on what side of the spectrum you are, right? I mean, if you're working at a job that's disposable, that can be taken over, then that is kind of scary. It can be scary. But, you know, depending on, well, how much of you use, right? I mean, I think ultimately isn't that...
Yeah, disposable is a dangerous word, though. But I think it's like... yeah, how do you say like a job that where you know it can
not
be
a good word.
Automated, right? Like if you, I guess if you keep on repeating the same, the
something
same
that's
process
like more like a
again
little technical skill.
Yeah.
You know, maybe like if you pack boxes at Amazon, now it's being taken over by robots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing wrong with packing boxes, but the problem is that's the job that people want automated, right? Because it's automatable, right? So I think the key is, well, what is AI? First of all, what is it? Because, you know, even not so long ago, I was like not aware until like there were these things, and I did more research and I found more stuff. But I think, you know, obviously there's a lot of AI that you don't know exists,
of course,
but in our field, you know, I know, you know, some of the stuff that was making a lot of splash was that NVIDIA.
Oh, the Gorgon
little app. Gorgon.
Yeah.
And it was like people were like, oh my God, look, you can make concept art straight from this little thing that you paint different colors, and then you can tell it to replace the colors with a mountain
exactly
that's got a sky. And I mean, for those of you who don't know, I don't even think it's even working anymore, but it was an experiment.
Yeah, kind of like a research thesis or whatever, right? I mean, there's a lot of them out there, and it's basically right. You could just draw like basic shapes, and then the program would
like a basic composition.
Yeah, and like solid colors, and then it would just figure out all the atmosphere and the depth, and you can change like, okay, I want to have a sunset with an ocean, or I want to just have like misty mountains or whatever, right? I mean, it's basically the idea of just drawing a stick figure like a 5-year-old, and then the AI kind of interprets what you really want to do, or like you draw an animal.
Did you play with it?
Yeah, a little bit, but I wasn't really, I don't know, I stopped using it right away. I don't know why. It just maybe because it was not spitting out like high resolution images, or wasn't actually, I don't know. It didn't feel that interesting or important to me, which maybe is too ignorant too ignorant to say. But I mean, in general, right? We're talking about like, artificial intelligence, machine learning, I think is what people like to use recently, right? Basically letting the computer do not all the work, but I mean, sometimes you say all the work for you, and you don't have to really do anything anymore except for like maybe, again, draw a stick figure of a cat, and then the app will throw out like a realistic looking cat for you. But I think we've seen like the Gorgon we have seen, and I think there's also this thing called the art breeder, where it's kind of like taking like an input image and then mixing it up with another image, and it creates like a kind of new creation out of it, which the more stuff you throw at it becomes more and more abstract and maybe unusable. And I think people are really scared, and maybe even the younger people are even more scared. They're thinking like, okay, if you take this further, right, and somebody at some point will take this further, right, that you just click like the next button in your like design software, design AI 5.0, and you click the next button and you just cycle through whatever design the app spits at you, and then you just like click send to the client, and then that's it. Or the client could even do that themselves. I guess that's really the fear that.
See, I think that's what people are afraid of.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That the client could just say, "Oh, I don't need you. I can just do this." And this is the one thing where I remember back then, and I know you used to be a Modo user, and there was this thing called the replicators. And I remember that you can have like a character, and you can replicate a lot of different designs onto that character and have it run a lot of different iterations. And I remember Scott Robertson was talking about this, and I thought to myself, that's genius. That's great. And because now I don't have to freaking place all this stuff, and I can just. And I mean, the more I thought about AI, the more excited I got about not having to do the mundane work.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, damn, I don't care to do like, but I do see that for some clients who are maybe, let's say, not so discerning, right? They kind of go, we just need some characters. They might go to Art Breeder and just kind of run something and go, yeah, something like that.
That's good enough for them,
but in the end, are those really the clients you want to work for? Because they can't even tell, right?
Yeah, I mean, like what you said, I mean, maybe actually we have to be a bit more afraid than we're right now. Maybe there's a certain subsegment of the design industry, of the art industry, where where that is actually going to be replaced. Or like you can just, instead of hiring like a really expensive senior designer, you just hire like some juniors and have some app suite like really generate some stuff, and then you just give those, like they're like 60% done, is like to give it to a junior and say like, okay, can you like touch this up, just add some stuff here, add some stuff there, and then like move on, right?
See, I would be more afraid if I was like a photo retoucher or something like that, because that is like definitely eating into my job, but that's such a task specific thing, right? But
exactly.
When it comes to concept art, I mean, ultimately you still have to think. You still have to pick the right designs and paint over it, because none of this stuff is, that's one thing I noticed about the NVIDIA thing, was that it was all a flat angle. It was all the same angle. I mean, at some point, if you're envisioning a story frame, it may not get you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because we often deal with very, very specific problems. And I mean, the computer can't yet understand. I mean, maybe there's going to be some like keyword machine that you feed into it, and you feed like, okay, Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock in front of a subway train in Boston. And then like the app can take all this information and spit you something out. And you say like, I want action, I want explosions or whatever. And then maybe that could actually come. I mean, it's actually an interesting idea, but
yeah, I know.
Again, somebody has to make that, and the thing, it's only going to be made if it makes money for somebody. I mean, all these companies who doing research into AI and machine learning, like for example NVIDIA. I mean, in the end, they still want you to buy their compute units. They still want you to buy their stuff. Nobody really, I mean, except for maybe like some research here and there. I mean, they're doing it for profit, right? And the question for me that I'm asking myself, like, okay, it's gonna come if somebody will profit from it. But if there's no money to be gained and it requires heavy investment, then who's gonna do that?
Well, that's why a lot of times it's going to be these side projects and, just to prove a point. But, the funny thing is, the deeper I looked into this, I also found that Adobe was doing some software to sort of use AI to find things that had been doctored in terms of copyright images.
That's really interesting.
And that is good for us and good for, I mean, anybody who doesn't, want their work stolen. and used in the wrong way, or maybe even just people, with like there's some video footage or some photos that are doctored that, like fake news or whatever.
That's true. Yeah, that's very important.
So a lot of this stuff is actually advancing, but I mean, it is scary. But the more I looked into this, right? So, recently there's the neural filters in Photoshop that just rolled out in the new version. There's this Topaz, up-resing, where they, and if people don't know this, I mean, I have a copy of this, and I think it's really good.
Oh yeah.
And what it does, do you have it?
I played around with the trials, like especially the up-resing and also the denoising. Those are really interesting.
Right. So I bought Topaz AI, just the up-resing one. And a lot of times it's because, the images that we use are super low res. So what it does, it takes a lot of low res areas and it interpolates what it should be and sharpens it up and up-reses it like 300-400%. Yeah. And it does a really good job. And it saved me so many times, when I've had to, like, oh my God, like say the production designer gave me an image that's totally blurry.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, use that. And I'm like, what am I going to, I'm going to repaint that.
Yeah,
so
but now
I up-res it and it actually works good. And that's a direct AI helping out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that's
it's not taking my job.
That's one side of the stuff where I think it can be really beneficial. And I mean, I'm on the fence if you want to really let's say you're a software developer, you really want to go into that because you think it's like all the rage. But I mean, now that we're seeing that not shortly after Topaz launched all this stuff, like Photoshop is doing it as well. Adobe is doing it as well. And they have maybe even more resources and can advance faster, right? So, but I mean, everybody's using like the denoising or upraising from like within Photoshop, I think, in our industry. And it's horrible. It's like 10, 15 years old, right? And it's completely outdated tech based on some math principles. But now there's actually a lot more tech involved. And I mean, that's great. I mean, I love all these things, but like... and now we have even like a canvas extension and I mean the healing brush features, they have actually grown a lot. So you can just mark any area and it's just going to completely replace
the content aware stuff.
Yeah, content aware stuff, and you don't need the clone tool anymore for most of the stuff. And I mean, now you have in the new version, I think, like automatic sky replacement. I mean, how great is that for concept design, right? So you don't have like cut out and all these menial tasks that take up so much time. And I mean, this is especially for, I think, for stuff that needs to be photoreal, right? That's like pure gold. Yeah. Like I feel like I don't have to spend so much time anymore on all these stupid menial tasks to get my image done. I can really focus more on the design, and that's really all I mean, as we're adjusting our workflow, right? As we're adjusting our workflow from doing less of these menial tasks, whether it's in 2D in Photoshop or even in 3D, where we can use like procedural tools and procedural shaders and all these kind of things that run to a certain degree automated. That all allows us to spend more time on the design. And I mean, that also means that I think going forward in the future that the design aspect, the curation aspect, the thinking part on the side of the human is going to be ever more important as we move forward, because again, the technical execution of it will become easier and easier and easier, right? And the apps will take up more of will just do more on themselves, and you just click a button. And I mean, honestly, that's great. I mean, I mean,
it's like when you used to have like old Photoshop and it didn't have layers, and then it came out with layers, and you're like, oh my God, that's great. I mean, this is just a next tool and evolution. But I think a lot of people are scared, and I don't know if scared is the word, but I mean, they are also looking at it like, wow, you can just run this thing like the art breeder and just run 1,000 iterations, and then you get this elephant fish looking thing, because if it runs 100 iterations, you're gonna find something there that's kind of usable to paint on top of.
But then you need to have
but it takes you to paint on top of it, and it doesn't replace fundamentals.
No, I think it makes the emphasis on fundamentals ever stronger, because
you have to recognize it.
you have to recognize it. And now you don't have only like, maybe let's say you hand draw everything, and then the client asks for like, okay, I want a couple of sketches, and you, I don't know, do like 3-4 sketches, maybe even like hand drawn line work or whatever, and you hand it in, and you make a lot of conscious choices to make that thing pretty. But now that you're bombarded with complete randomness, or I mean somewhat randomness, right? But you still have to feed the machine something to get something out of it, but the ratio is heavily skewed in terms of chaos and also variations. So that now you suddenly have, like, instead of 3 variations, you have like 50, and you need to make a selection out of those. And I think it's ever more important that you have really strong fundamentals to really realize, okay, which one is the best one and why, and how you need to tweak it. And I think it's getting more and more difficult the more options you have. And I mean, now that I think people can, like, working in 3D, they bombard the clients with like a dozen iterations every day, just because they can. Like, just move a few sliders around, and then you have a completely different looking thing. And then they're like, okay, that's good enough. I'll send that to the client as well, and then the next one as well. And then because in 3D you can do that, you don't need to redraw the entire thing. But a lot of clients, I mean, I'm experiencing that, is that they said like, oh, please don't send me so many variations. Like, make 3 really good ones where you spend more time on, where you really think about it, and send me those, right? I don't want the pure like brain dump that you did for the entire day. I don't want that, right? I want your skill. I want your eye for design in presenting me a few curated options. I don't know. Have you experienced that as well?
For me, I've made a conscious decision to not show so many versions recently, in the recent years, because I also find that some production designers will look at it and go, okay, why don't you take this one from that one and then put it on that one and then do that, and and they start making something that's like a complete Frankenstein. Yeah. So what and I'm not saying this is right, but I rarely give more than 2 versions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't even give versions, because I feel like my job, you're paying me to make a decision for you.
Exactly.
And if you told me, hey, I'd like a couple versions of this doing different things, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, I want this environment, I'm going to give you my best shot at that environment, and I'm going to curate it and make maybe 1 or 2. Because it's, like 2 really good ones means you got to have double the amount of time to really think about it. I don't design just like, I don't speed paint. It's just not what I do. Yeah. So everything I put down, I think about. So, my versions could be this pose or that pose in this environment though, so that, and I know if I gave my PD 10 different things, his head would blow up. He'd be like, oh my God, what the hell?
I mean, that's a good point though. I mean, they often don't want to see that much, or they even like, if they have to pass on, if the director asks, okay, what have you been doing? And they just give them a deluge of stuff, and then they go like the head is spinning, right? It's like, okay, can you just show me the one you want? Maybe that's also, the thing is though, I still recommend people to, I mean, especially when they're more junior, because I think yours is more like in a senior position. Yes, you will be asked, you have more of a voice, and you will be really asked for your take on it. But that's because they maybe have worked with you before, or they know you have a lot of experience, and that whatever you give them is going to be good. Whereas I think for the juniors, I think it's twofold. Like, on the one hand, I always recommend people to do variations, because they need to get the hang of the design mindset of just having multiple ways to solve a problem, and you need to develop that mindset to be able to do it in the first place, and to also not just go with the first solution that enters your mind, because it's rarely the best option, the best solution when you're young.
I mean, I absolutely agree.
Mm,
And I honestly think that having versions for anybody you work with means you're including them in the conversation. So that's actually really good. It's just that for me, and this is just, we're just talking. So I'm just telling you my mindset recently, this year's is just kind of like, I really have, like I'll take all the sketches I've done and then I go, that's the one I want to present. And I make a very conscious choice to do that. And I know, man, maybe I should give more versions. So I'm struggling with that right now because I'm getting to a point where I'm very like, that's the one. And I know that if I show more than, one thing, I'm going to make the other thing as good as it can be. But it's diluted, and I don't like that. So maybe I'm being too sort of artist and precious about it.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
it could be, that's something I've noticed about myself recently, that I'm like, maybe you want to give more versions.
I mean, not necessarily. I think it really depends on the task at hand. And I mean, being able to make decisions is also a very, I think, valuable skill because, like, again, you especially now with the AI stuff, you have so many variations. It's crazy. Like, it's endless. But then a lot of people, they defer the decision making to somebody else, so that they give all the options, so they don't have to make any call yourself, and they can't be blamed later for, I don't know, choosing the wrong one or whatever is behind it. But I mean, the decision making process is also something you need to train, and just saying like, okay, I have noodled around enough, I have enough reference, I have enough variations, I need to make a decision now that I'm going to choose variation B and not A, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, right? So that is something you need to train as well.
Do you do versions?
It depends on the task. So sometimes sometimes I do it if the client specifically asks for it and they say like, hey, okay, we just want to spend like a day or two on just checking some options and can you do a couple of quick sketches, and then I'll do it. If not, then I usually work on like maybe one or two. And also it depends on the task. Sometimes you just don't need variations. You have a very specific brief of like, okay, I want to see this scene where this happens. Can you do that? And then there's not that many different ways of doing it, and it's at some point it's a waste of time to explore all these different options because you can't move on. You just do it to give us. You need to figure out a way, just like it is in photography, that you have a still frame that can include a lot of what the scene is supposed to communicate, and then in the end, I mean, it's going to be an inspiration piece, or it's going to be like a rough blueprint for whatever the VFX guys are supposed to do. And then, because later on they're going to shoot the scene, they're going to have, they're going to figure out their own thing, right? So it's more about the communication of a certain feeling or certain action or expression, and you need to be able to capture that in a single frame. And it doesn't make sense to often do that many variations. It's just not needed. And again, as you become more senior, like you develop a sense for what you need to do, and you also get more leverage in terms of, they want Emmanuel, right? They don't want somebody else, and I want you to do your thing, and I know you can do it, and I just want your take on it. But of course, like
sometimes,
right? I mean, but sometimes, but ideally. But of course, if you're a junior, then I mean, or if you're still very, very early in your career, that is just not going to happen that often. Like sometimes you're going to find an indie project, and they're just going to let you do whatever you want, and that's fantastic. But often, like as a junior, you're going to work alongside some more senior people who, of course, want the juicy frames, the good stuff. And then you often just play like as a second fiddle as a junior. You fill in the gaps. You do like the you don't do the keyframes, but you do the in-betweens, right? So to speak. And I think you have to be okay with that for a certain amount of time. But why are we talking about this? Why are we not talking about AI, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, but no, I mean, that's what happens. I mean, I think that's valuable information. But back to AI, I also think You know, a lot of the stuff we're talking about is very, you know, what AI is good for is to be able to, you know, be able to find patterns and give iterations on different things and mix up different things, and it will learn how to do that. But at the very, you know, it cannot make a subjective decision.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really think. Well, at least it doesn't think yet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I think. So I think that's why it's really important to have. Why we'll never be replaced is because you have a brain, and your brain encompasses memories, encompasses you as a person, who you were, who you are, how you grew up, and all that you can bring into making into something great, and making sure that none of these tools, which are just tools. You know, it's like a car, right? I mean, it takes you somewhere, and you use it, but it's you know, it's you know, there's always going to be you make the decision to go drive that car to do what it does. It's not gonna, well, it may self-drive later, but I mean, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's tricky, right? So I mean, if you talk about design, if you talk really about creative thinking work, right? We're talking about problem solving. We're talking about something very intentional, and like you said, design is we're solving problems that we are humans, as humans, solve problems for other humans, right? And we also and I don't think an AI can necessarily understand, and design, like you said, is also an expression of yourself. And I mean, unless an AI can have memories and experiences and can build on that to form an expression that is uniquely you, it's not going to work. But so
it's never going to be you, right?
But as a counterpoint,
there's no way.
As a counterpoint, right? As a counterpoint, I wanted to say, like, I don't want to put design or what we do on a pedestal. I don't want to like necessarily say like, okay, like what we do is like elite thinking work. I mean, we're not curing COVID or cancer or whatever. We are not necessarily making the world. We're not doctors without borders or anything, right? So like in order not putting a design on a pedestal, like. Don't you think there's a certain there is a part that can be automated? That, I mean, if you purely think about design as a set of rules, like rule of thirds, 80-20 rule, and learning from nature or that kind of stuff, like, don't you think in the future these kind of principles can be formalized and fed into a machine brain?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can put rule of thirds. You can say, you know, what color goes with what color. You can, you know, complementary colors, all this kind of stuff. Yes, you can dump it all into a computer brain. But, you know, it's like the old masters, right? It all started with a lot of rules. And then later on, different kinds of artists, different generations of artists will come and break those rules. And by breaking the rules, you are saying something different, right? So it's like when Degas said, well, I'm going to have tangents all over my paintings, and you're going to love it. And there's a reason why you look at it and it's unique. And that's a good point, because I think at some point, you know, you will have that, but it will, some things will really come in to help you with the thing, with your art creation and design. And some things just won't matter because you already have the fundamental skills. You don't need it to spit out an image that has all the stuff in the rule of thirds and all that, because design is design. Ultimately, if you think, you know, problem solving, you want to solve the problem, and someone wants you to solve the problem. But maybe you say, well, you know, I want 100 different color variations. And that's going to help me. And that's what an AI can do, because you don't have to yourself go and do that one by one. But I think ultimately there's nothing that can replace you as a person and as a brain. I mean, and I truly believe that. And when I realized, that, I automatically had no more fear, because I was like, you know what? Because there's me. I mean, you can't replace me. You can't replace you. It's impossible. But if your job was only to say, I only photo retouch, but then that job could be replaced by, having, the healing brush now, right? So maybe that's just life saying, okay, well, you don't have that job anymore, but maybe you can use those thinking skills and move on to another job.
So basically, if you feel like in your job you're not using your brain, you just perform automated movements, then maybe you should be concerned. But I mean, let me play devil's.
But concerned, but maybe it will push you to become more of yourself, because maybe it's maybe because of there's this tool now, you feel like your job's in jeopardy. Maybe you'll learn something new and open up new doors for yourself. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate here and dig a little bit deeper. So I mean, if you say, like, as a designer, like you and I, as a person and designer, can't be replaced, but let's say you're like a junior and maybe you've gotten some jobs by doing some paintings that don't look that unique, because I mean, as a junior, your stuff never looks that unique, right? You're just very directly inspired and influenced by your art heroes or by stuff you like. So it all looks like slightly derivative. I mean, so what chance do young people really have if, let's say, the job of a texture painter or of a photo retoucher, if those are on the brink of being replaced by all sorts of machine learning? Like how do we break into? Will it make breaking into the industry even harder, or will there even be an entire lower end task segment of the creative industries falling away?
No, I think it will evolve, is what I think. And I think it will evolve to a point where, when you go to Amazon and you used to pack the boxes, now there's the machine. But the machine still needs to be operated. It still needs to be fixed. It still needs to be programmed. It still needs a lot of different things. Just because there's the healing brush, it doesn't mean you also need to know how to use it, but in its way, because it is a computer. It won't do it perfectly, right off the bat. So somebody will still have, not yet, but I mean, I don't know that there will ever be, perfect, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say to that, but I don't, maybe not in my lifetime, but all I can say is I think that you can, if you choose to sort of want to be, at a junior level, it's not a choice. It's, you have to come and get experience. But I do feel that in the field of art creation, which is, even junior people in an art team, that's what they're doing in some ways. But if you're doing more of the mundane task, maybe you'll have to do it differently. Maybe you have to do less mundane tasks. Maybe you're even asked to do more creative tasks, because all the mundane tasks, it's done. Like, you used to have to make normal maps and bump maps and all this stuff. Now there's automatic stuff that generates it now. But now you're just free to do more, how do you apply it to that image that your art director wants.
But then don't you think it's going to be about let's say you're not actually going through the process of I don't know, whatever you have to do to make normal maps or roughness maps or whatever. You don't go through the process of actually applying those filters and blah blah blah. But now it's actually just a click of a button. But isn't it going to be that you're going to be reduced to somebody clicking I don't know, import, change color, export, enlarge, blah blah. You just press the buttons. And your boss is going to expect you to, instead of doing 2 texture maps a day, they're going to expect you to do 20 or 50, because you just have to press buttons. So one menial task is going to be replaced by an even more menial task.
I think menial task is the menial task, and I don't know that it's going to get more. But
I'm just thinking.
No, it's a good thought, but I also think that it's just going to be sort of part of paying your dues as a junior, and you're just going to have to do whatever task. I mean, photocopying, which is I did that.
Oh yeah.
Or stuff like that for somebody, or fixing stuff that's not even in the job description, or cutting boards or cutting prints. I mean, that's a pretty menial task, but then I got to cut the print and look around and go, oh, that guy's doing that, that guy's doing that. It's always going to be, you're always going to have tasks like that at some point in your life. And I feel like I don't, whether it's babysitting an AI spitting out things, rotoscoping something, or, whatever, I think, it's just going to be an evolution, of what's the task. And which actually leads me to, this is not AI, but I think this is all the rage right now. And there's a good reason for it, which is Unreal.
Oh, yeah.
And I think everybody wants to learn it. Everybody thinks that that you have to know it. And I actually want to talk about it because I actually think, it doesn't really have any AI component
I think people feel like it has the same promise of like, oh, you're just gonna like load up Unreal like you load up a game, and then you throw your meshes into it, and then like everything is done, all the animation, all the physics, daylight system, everything is done for you. I think that's kind of the idea, the nostalgic idyllic idea that people have, which of course couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, but I actually think that is a portion of people, right? But I actually think that most people are freaked out, and they're thinking, every job I go to, I'm going to have to know this thing because it, not only is it amazing as a tool, everybody is using it. Seems like, right? Yeah, the Mandalorian, the light walls, everybody is using it. Every show's using it. I'm being asked if I can do Unreal. People are freaking out. Is that going to be my next job? And I'll tell you, I had a couple, well, more than a couple. I have a lot of, thoughts, and it's made me really contemplate, like, do I learn this? Do I not learn this? And I had a discussion with some of the artists that are on Star Wars that are doing it. And ultimately, for me, this is personal. I want to learn it because there's a project I want to do that needs it.
Okay.
But I actually don't want to advertise the fact that I know it.
Right.
Because it's just a tool. I don't want to... See, that's the thing, right? It's just like AI, right? You don't want to be like, well, I'm the greatest AI tool, this thing operator. And then what are you going to be? You're going to be operating that tool, which is what Unreal is.
Right.
It's just a tool. And if you want to exercise your creativity, I don't think there's anything faster than, drawing or painting or however you create your art, because Unreal is very specific, very planned. You can't just go in there and kind of go, I want to free form in here, because you're going to make your model somewhere else.
It has that very deliberate aspect, and it's less like... one of the things I wanted to talk about is also the like taking advantage of and generating happy accidents. And that is something very powerful and something you can take.
I think AI can give you that, though. It can give you that.
But then if you're like within Unreal, you have to, like you said, you have to do a very deliberate kind of process of importing models, texturing models, placing them, putting one here.
Yeah, but so here's the kicker. I guarantee you there's going to be AI in there, and I guarantee you can probably click a button and it'll make a whole bunch of procedural landscapes, which is a form of AI, because
it's true.
It's an artist. It will think for you. Say, okay, I want high mountains, and I want low this, and then I want frozen here, and all that, and then it's going to create this. You don't like this? Do another one. You don't like this? Do another one. Yeah. Sooner or later, it's going to have that. But I don't care, because ultimately I'm going to be like, no, that doesn't look good, because I get to do that. Computers won't do that.
Yeah.
It won't be like, well, I think it looks good. It doesn't think. Not yet.
Yeah. Not yet. I'm sure there's a way you can say, like, okay, if it has the I can imagine that there's going to be like, okay, if the ratio of the sky to the ground is this, if the mountain is this high, if the ratio of the mountains to the grass and the snow, and then the horse has the optimal
but think about this. Then it doesn't.
But then so you have all these like golden ratios everywhere, and all the saturation values, color, distance, fog, size, everything. But I think in the end, it will still, like, if you imagine you would generate entire movies or games out of just completely randomized, no, not randomized, but like if you basically just let a super powerful machine do all the thinking for you and analyze everything down to the story and rhythm of the show, I think it will feel like completely soulless and empty. It will, maybe one or two of them will generate interest because just purely based on how they have been made. But then after that, I mean, if you let the machine do all the decisions for you, I think the only audience for those kind of generated content would be other machines. Only they could appreciate all the subtle like the subtle golden ratios and everything, just to say that.
Sure.
But for humans, I think there's a lot, I think a lot of what humans appreciate, I think, is the imperfection and the randomness of accidents and all of these kind of things, right? So if we take it like to the nth degree, right?
Sure. I mean, I think absolutely. But I also feel like, the AI doesn't know who you're working with.
Yeah.
It doesn't know who they are and where they came from and what they like.
Exactly.
It doesn't know any of that. What it knows is, all right, well, I know how to make a perfectly symmetrical face because you said good looking, right?
Yeah.
Oh, bad looking is you input it inside of me, so you need scars to that means this, that.
Yeah.
It has all these rules, but in the end, it like you said, it'll look a little soulless, but it's not going to be anyone's vision. Like,
yeah, that's true.
if I had a vision, I grew up near a lake and I want to play in the water and it felt like this. The computer's not going to know that.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be feeling passionate about anything. It's going to be like, okay, A, B, C. And so that's why I think no matter what you do, until they get to the point where you can program that person's memories into a computer, and that's not happening now, and I highly doubt that will happen.
Somebody will try.
If it happens, we'll deal with it then. But I think for now, there's not anything to worry about, because, I mean, ultimately, back to the main point is anybody in jeopardy of losing their job? Basically, the skills that they've learned, are they? And I actually think now is all the more reason to go back to traditional if you can, like in terms of like augmenting your skills, because. And I was talking to George the other day about this.
George Hull?
George Hull. Yeah. And I was telling him the reason why I think his stuff looks so fresh is because it looks more traditional. And he makes it a point to do that because everybody's using all the latest tools, all the rendering tools, all the this and that. And you can tell a lot of people are using the same tools because it kind of looks the same. Then you get something that looks like a marker and you go, oh my God, that looks so awesome.
How do you do that? Do you have a marker brush? And it's like, he just probably used a marker and scanned it in, right? Something like that.
Well, I mean, he either does that or he'll paint it like a marker, which is actually even harder than doing a marker drawing. But the point of it is that just stay true to what you do. And the trend out there is the trend. It's good to know it. But sometimes I think if you go against it, you actually create more of an art path. It's like I was talking about Degas and doing those dancers, and he would, I don't know how the hell he made those tangents work, but they work for me. And I look at it, I go, he broke the rules. And only us can, I think only humans right now can do that. I mean, the computer's not going to know the break. Yeah, and the computer is not going to know to break any rules because you haven't told it to.
Yeah.
But if you told it to, it's just doing what you're telling it to anyway. So it's not making any decisions now.
Yeah.
And I know this can get really deep. and I don't even dare go there because I'm not that intellectual. All I can think of is nobody can replace who I am or who you are as a person. There's just no way. But these tools, instead of being afraid of them, let's embrace them. Let's use them. Like when I saw that sky replacement tool in Photoshop, I was like, yeah, man, I don't have to go cut up, like all these masks.
Exactly.
I hate that. That took so long. I hate doing masks.
But
And now they're working.
yeah.
Go ahead.
To your point, that nobody can replace who you are, and that your expression, your design, and your work is an expression of your experience and memory. But that also necessitates that you really have to follow who you are and what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy one thing, and you mean maybe let's say you like what could it be? Maybe you like Simpsons. You just love Simpsons, and all you want to do is like anything related to Simpsons. But you're being forced. Or not necessarily directly forced, but maybe the economic forces make you only draw Rick and Morty. I don't know, just because that makes a lot more money right now. No, so there's an economic pressure to say, because everybody hates Simpsons, nobody wants to see Simpsons ever again. Everybody only wants Rick and Morty, and it happens so that you can actually draw Rick and Morty really well, and they pay you a lot of money. So you subconsciously or consciously start spending your time on things you don't really enjoy. And maybe there's a way that your Rick and Morty work can actually also be easily automated. But now that I'm talking about all this nonsense, what I'm trying to say is that if you don't want to run the risk of getting replaced, or if you have a very strong fear that like your work is not that great and not that meaningful and it can be easily replaced, then maybe it is. But that also means that then you really need to dig deeper down to see, okay, what is your expression? What is it that you like and really love doing?
Ultimately, I think
I think you're safer. Then I think you're less exposed to, again, if you're not yourself, if you're pretending to be somebody else, you will be replaced. But if you're you can't be replaced, because you just nobody else there that is like you.
That you do not pretend to be somebody else. That is exactly it. And also a lot of people, your Simpsons and Rick and Morty thing. I mean, look, the truth of it is, we all need to start in the industry, whatever industry that is, and we all need to pay our dues. And you're going to have to do Rick and Morty stuff that you don't really like that much, but for money. I mean, that is also part of the economic world. I mean, if you want to be financially secure in this career, well, you're going to have to do some things that you're not going to love. And whatever AI plays into that, you may need to, because AI at some point you still have to steer it. So you might be the person steering the AI, whatever it is that you have to do. But I think at some point, yes, you need to come out. You're inside who you are, what you express, how you express. I mean, look at me. It's over a 20-year career, and I'm just starting to express myself.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy, but I think
I've had a lot of mundane tasks, man. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of as much as we want to call ourselves artists. I mean, we work for somebody else. We work on commission, or we work for hire, and there's only so much. I mean, we always love to hear that from a client, to say like, okay, I want you, like, give me your best shot. But in the end, they just need a wrist to execute. And a lot of our jobs is just that. No matter how creative or artistic you think you are, our job is very, very commercial, right? If you want to be,
the funny thing is, I was just talking with my wife recently, and it's pretty much all the time we're talking about exactly what you just talked about, which is, look, out of all the jobs, even in this let's say in this last 2 years, I think I've had like 20% of it that's any part of, I want you, Emmanuel, to do this because that's what you do, and we want to see that. The rest of it was, I want this So do it.
Yeah.
And I want it to look this, and part of it, you're kind of going, the description you use for those work, have you seen my portfolio? I don't even do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I just want that because you're on the project. And it's going to happen.
A lot.
And at some point, you have to decide, depending on, who you are and where you're at in your career, what you want. If you really want to express, well, then maybe, like that episode we talked about, lower your monthly income, your outtake, like all the stuff you have to spend money on, and take on less and do more personal work.
Yeah.
And maybe that will get you the work that you need.
Yeah, exactly.
But ultimately, I think, you kind of have to, if you're going to work for money, then, try to obviously have the skills that are more uniquely coming from you, right?
Exactly.
While keeping in touch with what's happening out there, right? I mean, knowing the AI things that are either going to take your job away. If you're a sky replacement person, then yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So, you're going to have to make some steering, go, and ask yourself, well, why is it taking away my job? Like, should I actually learn more about, making my job more unique or expressing myself more? Maybe that's the question you need to ask yourself. Maybe it's doing you a favor.
Maybe.
So,
yeah. It's good if you see like an opportunity and not get completely depressed by some program taking over your job, right? See it as an opportunity to dig deeper into who you are and what you can bring to the world, right? Because again, there's only one you. And I think
wow, profound.
It's a profound way to wrap up this episode. I think this was a bit meandering, but I think we had a lot of interesting points. I hope that our listeners, just as that you and me, are not afraid of AI taking our jobs anymore, but rather really just keep our heads down and
embrace
focus.
Embrace it.
Exactly. And so thank you so much for tuning in again. If you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share with all your friends that you think are maybe a bit afraid of AI, or have been, I don't know, maybe you've been talking a lot to your friends recently about what could potentially come in the future. So please do share with them. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, if you like the interview with Sparth and you want to see more interviews, please let us know as well. Until then, thank you so much and see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello and welcome to the Art Department podcast. Okay, I'll try one more time.